Okay, so in this video, we're going to put together our Zinnia Compote, and we're going to begin by just putting together the base, or the actual structure itself. And we'll begin by putting together the bottommost layer, okay? And that is made up of these pieces here. So just take a look and make sure you've got the right ones. It looks just like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is begin by, as always, just folding and creasing at the score marks, and that's going to help make sure that everything goes together correctly. Now if you take a look at this piece here, this is the bottom here. There's a little tiny little bit here that actually makes up the bottom of the bottom part, if that makes any sense. So it's going to sit like this. So just make sure that you have that right. Okay, and then this is going to go like this, because this is, again, you can just identify this smaller rectangular area, and that is how that goes together. Okay, so just go ahead and get all of this scored. Not scored, but just folded over at the score lines. And then we can go ahead and begin putting it together. Now I will say that this is probably the most time-consuming project in our Give Thanks bundle, but it's pretty easy actually. So it's just going to take some time. I actually initially kind of was intimidated by how much there was to assemble, but then once I got on a roll, time just kind of flew by, and I really enjoyed putting this piece together. It's probably my favorite piece that I put together. So we're just going to connect these two pieces here and just make sure that you've got it butted up against the score mark there. And if you want, you can even fold it in half just to get a better look at that piece there. Okay, so just make sure that you've got that nice and connected there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to join this piece like so. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit of glue on here. And the method that I've kind of refined over time here is I kind of put a little bit of a glob there, and then I put a nice little tiny, not so globby line right towards the edge there so that I get nice seamless corners. Okay, so just make sure that you've got that nice and lined up, and just hold that until it's nice and dry. Okay, and we're going to repeat that process with this next piece here. Okay, so let's start with the little tab, and I will apply glue again, nice glob at the end, and then just a tiny little bit towards the edge to make sure that that is nice and seamless. So hold it however you need to hold it to get it just right. And just hold that in place so it gets a good hold. And then again, we're just going to put some glue here on this tab, and then get a nice tiny little line along the edge there. Try not to overdo it. You don't want it to spill out. Here we go. And that looks pretty good to me. So we'll work our way over. Put a little glue on the small triangle here, out to the edge. And just hold that in place until it's dry. This is probably, I'd say this piece is probably the most difficult, just this bottom piece of the three little structures that we're going to create here. But when I say difficult, of course, relatively speaking, it's difficult compared to the other ones, but it's actually very easy. I don't know. I think I just said it was very difficult. It's not difficult at all. Maybe I should have said it's not very difficult. I think that's what I said. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and close this up. Like so. There we go. And just make sure that you've got all of pieces nice and lined up. You want everything running up and down, nice and parallel. Okay, and then we can go ahead and put glue on this final piece here. And get that closed up. And just hold that, make sure it gets a good hold, make sure it dries. If you get a little glue that pops out, you can just rub it off with your finger. Okay. Okay, so the best way that I found to do this is to begin with just one side here. So I'm gonna put a nice line right in the center and then do a little bit of a thin line out to the edge. And that's a little too close to the edge, but it was thin enough to where I don't think it's going to squirt out. Okay. And let's apply just that one side to this. And this is kind of how I did it, just making sure that I've got it nice and aligned, nice and flush, and I'll kind of hold it in place for just a second until it gets that hold. And then you can kind of flip it down and push down from the inside. Like so. Okay, so that's going to ensure that we've got a nice seam there. And then we can go ahead and close it up. So a nice fat line in the center, and then a nice gentle line along the edge, kind of pushing down the nozzle of my glue bottle as I squirt it out so that it comes out more flat. If you squeeze it out above the paper, it tends to release more glue in that area, and then you're more likely to make a mess. Okay, so before we push this down, I kind of want to flip these tabs up, but not all the way up, just so that as I'm pushing down, it grabs more surface area. And now that's not, you don't have to do it like that, because you can actually flip this over and make any adjustments you need from the inside. Okay, so make sure that that is nice and aligned, and then you can push down with your finger inside, and there you go. Okay, and now to close this up, we're just going to glue that into place. And this doesn't have to be perfect because no one's going to see it, but we did want to add that piece to make this thing nice and structurally sound. Okay. And again, I'm going to flip these tabs out just a tiny bit so that we get more surface area. And there we go. I have to kind of squirm it around a little bit. Okay, so there's our perfect little platform. And may as well talk about the little panels and all of the different things that we put on the bottom there. Now, you've got two of these, okay, and there are two of these guys. And I took and I inked the edges of these pieces, and kind of wish that I would have initially inked it with a brown color. This thing I found at Joann's. I think it was right near the Tim Holtz section. I kind of don't like using these inks because when they're so fresh, you kind of almost get like too much you know? So this thing, you can kind of dab on as little or as much as you want. And I just kind of ink the edges. Now this might be a little bit too strong of a color for this vanilla paper, which is why we used a like a pumpkin color. I think I might actually have it here. Yeah, for our sample that I did a couple of days ago, I used that color. It was a little more subtle. So we did some inking around the edges of these pieces. I'm not going to go through all of that, but you're welcome to ink it, or you're welcome to leave it alone, or if you have some other distress technique that you want to use, you can feel free to do that. But this piece is just going to get glued on right here. And I did fold at the score line, but you don't want to fold it too much because the angle is very subtle. So you're going to glue that on right there. Okay, the other one goes on the other side, and then you have two that go on the sides. Okay, now this one is does have a little bit more of an angle. Okay, so you can go ahead and get that glued on right there. Just make sure that you have it nice and centered. There's a nice border going all the way around it. Okay, so that is that. And then there are some overlay pieces. Hold on a second here. Let me grab this piece again. There are some tiny overlay pieces. Now we were going to make these cut out, but we wanted to add more dimension, more interest to this piece. So when you have this piece glued down, there are some tiny little strips here, and you're probably thinking to yourself, Leo, how do you get that on there? Well, just take your glue and make sure that you get a nice dot on the edge. Let me just get the flow going like that. And then I just dotted it throughout. Probably had just a few little dots here and there, just like that. You don't need to glob it on, just tiny little dots. Okay, and then do your best to center that, just like that. Okay, now you're gonna obviously be more careful, as I was when I put together my final, but that's how that works. Okay, and there's small ones for the side here that go on top of that panel that I showed you, and then the long ones go on the long side. Okay, so that is the bottom of our little structure. Now we can take a look at the middle layer. Okay, and that's just this piece here. It's very simple actually. It's all self-contained. So you just want to go ahead and crease these at the score marks, and we can go ahead and begin putting it together. So we're just going to put glue on this little triangle here and connect it to its neighbor, like so. Make sure you've got a nice right angle there. And just hold that in place until it's dry. And I may breeze through this a little quickly, so if it does come apart, that's why. You want to be a little bit more patient with your glue. Just make sure that you're giving it time to set. Okay, and as you can see, we're just basically forming a box shape here. Okay. So that's how that works, and it's pretty obvious, almost self-explanatory, I would say, as to how this works. Okay, so I'm going to take this and bend it out of the way for a second so that I can get my finger in there and continue creating this structure. Okay, and then last but not least, we have this triangle here. I'll throw some glue on there and get that in place. Okay. And this guy kind of slipped a little bit because I rushed it. No problem though. There we go. Okay. And we're just going to put glue on these tabs here. Nice fat line in the center. And then a nice thin line on the edge. There we go. And just close it up. It's a very simple box. Very simple box shape. And with this guy here, we have some panel pieces that you're going to glue on there. You should have 4 little panel pieces. Okay, and you're literally just going to put glue on this piece here. Get some glue out to the edge there. Might have to kind of clean some of that off. And you're going to glue that right on there. Okay, and of course, you're going to put the smaller pieces on the sides and the other piece on the back. So that's how this piece works. Very simple, and it's actually okay if you want to glue this piece to this piece. So you can go ahead and put a nice glob of glue on there. And again, just to kind of make sure it's nice and clean. Get some glue out to the edges so that it holds. Okay, and just pop that on, center it, and then grab something heavy maybe just to put it on there. I mean, not too heavy, you don't want to crush this box, but let that sit for a little bit while it dries, and then we can go ahead and begin assembling this piece here. Okay, and I'm actually going to put my panels on before I start assembling the structure, because it's just a little bit easier that way. Okay, now you're gonna have 2 of these pieces here. Okay, and you have one other piece that looks like that, but it doesn't have these little half circles cut out. You're gonna glue that to that like that. Piece didn't pop out. Okay, so that's gonna get glued like so. So let me just throw a little bit of glue on there just so that it holds, but you wanna do a better job putting glue on yours. Okay, so you just wanna glue that to itself like that. Okay, and then there's a little acorn piece that gets glued right over the acorn. Okay, so you want to get that glued in place. And then all you're going to do is get these pieces glued in place. Just make sure that you have them nice and centered. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll just do one just to show you. And one thing I noticed, now obviously again, you're going to do a better job with your glue. I noticed that the first time I did it, I didn't have enough glue out to the edges, which I constantly tell you guys to do, and I just didn't do it myself, and I had to go in with like a toothpick and add some glue after it was already on there because I didn't have enough there the first time. Okay, so that's going to get glued on like that. And give that a little bit to dry. Okay, and then again we have these 2 side pieces that have these panels. So you're going to glue those panels on the little side pieces. Okay, so I'm going to just do one so that you guys can follow along and not get confused. Again, just make sure that you have it nice and centered and that you've got a nice even border going all the way around. Make sure you get enough glue on there so that it's nice and flush. And again, these we did ink as well. You can ink them if you'd like. It's totally up to you. And once those pieces, those panels are dry, you can go ahead and actually, you know what? I'm sorry. There's more pieces to put on. We have these decorative border pieces here as well. Okay. And these are going to go on like this. But actually, I'm going to suggest that you don't put those on until after the structure is together. So let's go ahead and get all of these score lines creased so that we can put this easy structure together. Let me get this out of the way. Can't stress how important it is to crease these score marks. It just makes your life so much easier when it comes to actually assembling all these pieces. So I'm going to begin by, and this piece is going to be straight up. This is actually going to curve in a little bit, so it's going to be kind of like that. I'm going to begin, as I did the first time, in my original by gluing the top part first. I'm just making sure that I've got a nice foundation for the rest of this to go together. Okay, just make sure that it's nice and even at the top and hold that in place until it's nice and dry. Just make sure that it's following the score mark. Okay, there we go. And then we can go ahead and put glue on that tab there. And get that glued into place. Now once it gets its initial grip, just make sure that you don't have any glue coming out. You can always put it down on your table and push down. That kind of helps it dry faster because you're squeezing the glue out into those little nooks and crannies in the paper. There we go. Okay, and we can let's grab the next long piece here. Okay, and I'm going to put some glue on this tab here. And just get that glued into place. And just hold that until it's nice and dry. Okay, and then we can go ahead and put glue on this tab here. And get that in place. Just make sure you're following the natural curve, natural angle I should say, it's not a curve, of the neighboring piece here. Should have nice seams. Everything should match up beautifully. Okay, so that's that. And then we can go ahead and close it off with this piece here. I did not score this or crease this one yet, so I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, and begin by just gluing this piece first. And again, can't stress how much or how important it is to make sure that you get some glue out to the edge there, just to make sure that you've got those nice closed up, clean seams. Okay. There we go. And now we wanted to save some paper, so we didn't put any liners or anything inside, which doesn't matter because technically it's going to be covered up by all your floral, all the flowers that we're going to make. So we didn't think it was necessary for you guys to use even more paper on this project because it is kind of heavy when it comes to paper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close that up. Like I said, just make sure you follow that natural angle there. There we go. And this guy is ready to be closed up by just simply connecting these two pieces. Okay, so I'm going to start with our top piece here, just as I did the previous 3 times. And just press and hold that in place. This piece is super easy actually. Like once you start getting all these pieces together and all your pieces start to kind of disappear because everything's coming together, you're gonna be like, wow, this is a very impressive piece actually. Ron did an amazing job with the design, and Diana really rocked it with the engineering. So there's that one tab left in there. Go ahead and again put nice glob in the middle, and then try to, maybe a little difficult because of the angle, but get some glue right towards the edge there so we can get it nice and clean when we go to close it up, just like that. And I am loving doing more paper crafting these days. It's very relaxing, very meditative. Almost been doing more paper crafting than I have been playing guitar. And some may think that's kind of sad, but I'm enjoying it. All right, so all that's left to do is close this up. Okay, and just as we did with that first piece, I'm going to go ahead and start with just one side, just to anchor it. And the rest of it will fall into place nicely. So just drop that on there, kind of look back and forth there just to make sure that you've got it nice and aligned. Give it a few seconds to grip. Then once it's gripped, we can flip it over and use our table for additional leverage to push that down. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, got a little glue squirt out of there, not a problem. Okay, so all that's left to do is just apply some glue on these. So all that's left to do is just apply some glue on these three here. Again, just make sure that you've got a nice little line out to the edge. And flip them up a tiny bit. And go ahead and push down. Here we go. And then you can flip it over, push down from the inside. Okay, so this piece is almost done. Now again, we do have some decorative pieces here. This one's going to get glued on right in the center there. Okay, so just throw some glue on the back of that and get that glued into place. Of course, you're going to do the same thing back here. And then there's two smaller ones that go here and on the other side as well. So you want to get those into place. And we can actually go ahead and start talking about how to decorate the leaves that go in here. So what I'll discuss here is the placement, okay, just so that you understand the placement. Now, before I talk about the placement, you'll notice in your download, and when you get all your pieces cut out, there's a series of leaves that have score marks, okay? These are the ones that actually get put on skewers, okay? So anything with a score mark at the bottom is not for this. It actually goes inside. You're gonna actually jam that into your wet foam. So anything with a score mark, we're not using for this. These are all gonna be little picks that go into the wet foam, which leaves the ones that don't have score marks, and the little squares on the bottom are a little bit thicker. Okay, so I'll show you where all of these go and what we did to them. Okay, now again, we did ink these. We inked them all in a brown color. Okay, so you're welcome to ink them whatever color you want. Okay, now I think I don't remember if I used this. I think this is Jumbo Java. Maybe I did. I think I used a lighter brown when I inked my pieces. So for those of you that are master inkers, you've got a little bit of therapy coming your way, because we actually inked all of the leaves in this, the ones that go onto the picks as well as the ones that go onto the structure. You don't need to ink around here because that's not going to be visible. So just ink the pieces that you want to ink. Okay, so I'm not going to do all that because you guys are going to get super bored watching me. But I will discuss where these pieces go. So there are 4 pieces that look like this. Okay, let me find them. Okay, so you got 4 pieces that look like this. There's 2 pieces that are a little bit skinnier. Okay, and then we have these pieces with the larger tabs at the bottom. And then we have these pieces here. Okay, so let's just talk about how this works. Now, what we did too here is did a lot of training with these leaves. Okay, so for example, with this one, this one, the way it works is it gets glued in like this. Okay, so what we did is I actually used a dowel, and I'm going to actually find that dowel because I want to show you how I trained everything. Let me grab my dowel here. Okay, so I've got a nice dowel. I'm not sure on the size of this, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I've found that because these pieces are kind of sensitive, I liked using it on the table because I didn't want to rip it. I'm afraid that if I do it in the air, I may rip it. And I really wanted to get this thing really bent and really trained so that it kind of looks like it's kind of hunching over like that, okay? And you can actually take this and just kind of fold it over too so that it hunches over even more. And then I took it and trained it the opposite way so that it kind of curls up. So first it curls down and then it curls up. Okay, kind of like that. So that's how I did that. And then you're going to take and just put glue on the back of that and glue that to the inside. Okay, so you see how that's kind of hanging out like that. You're welcome to do it however you want. I just thought that was actually Ron's vision on these leaves here. So that's really cool. All right, so this other piece gets glued in just like that one. And I'm just gonna fold this over for now, just to kind of simulate what I did with the first one when I trained it. And now actually you notice that I didn't glue this to the other structure yet. And that's by design because when we put our wet foam in here and we start jabbing at it, we didn't want to crush that bottom layer. So you want this separate from this piece until you've got everything situated in here, and then we can glue that on there. Okay, so these 4 pieces here that are all the same, these go into the corners here. Okay, so one here, one here, one here, and one here. And again, you can fold it. Didn't actually put score lines on these in case you wanted to do something different with them. But basically, we just kind of train these to curve down. And then if you want, you can train them. You can train it to kind of curve up at the end like that, and then get that glued into the corners there. So you're going to put glue on the inside of the piece and just stick that right in there. Okay, so you're going to repeat that with all 4 of those. Okay, just make sure you give it enough time to dry. So again, there's 4 of those. They all go into the corners here, just like I did. Okay, and there are 2 skinnier pieces. Okay, and this one does have a score mark. And this one, I think I just did a simple curve at the bottom like that. And that gets glued right in the center, okay? Now, when you have your little decorative diamonds on there, that will help you center it better. And you're just gonna put glue on the inside here and just glue that to the center. Okay. And again, there's 2 of those, one for the back. You're gonna get that glued into place. And then finally, we have these pieces here, okay? And these get glued to the inside like so, okay? And again, with these, you can fold them right at the edge there, or depending on what you wanna do, you don't have to fold them. And with these pieces here, actually folded them the wrong way. You want your texture side up. Okay, and I just kind of took my dowel and I really tightly rolled the edge there to kind of give it that sort of look. I thought that was really cool. And again, this was also inked in brown. We inked all the green stuff with brown ink. Okay, and as Ron mentioned, and as is apparent in nature, the more random everything is, I think the more realistic it's going to look. Okay, so you're just going to get that glued into place like so. I'm just going to put glue on the inside of this and glue that into place. Okay. So there we go. I'm going to repeat that same process with the other piece on the other side. Okay. And again, you can curl the leaves however you want. So at this point, we've got pretty much everything assembled as far as the structure goes. Okay. So all that's left to do is discuss the flowers and the little picks that, you know, with the leaves and stuff like that, that we're going to actually start jamming into the, you know, the final arrangement. So one thing though, because somebody did ask, as far as the wet foam goes, you'll want to cut it to 6 inches wide at the bottom, and I'm sorry, 6 inches long and about I'd say 2¼ inches wide, so that it sits in there. And then you can angle it if you want, but I think all you really need is that square in there, because you can jam the picks in sideways. Okay, so that's about the size that you'll need for the actual wet foam. Let me give that to you one more time. That's 6 inches long. Okay, so 6 inches this way, and about well, 2¼ I think would be safe, just to make sure that it fits in there. So, and you'll want to hot glue your wet foam in there. Okay, and let's talk about how we did the leaves and the flower, but let's start with the leaves first. It's very simple. Now, I only have to show you one, because the process is pretty much exactly the same for all of them. Okay, now you can ink and distress these however you like, and then you can also grab your dowel or whatever it is that you use to kind of give these some interest. There are a few of them that are patterned. We also inked the patterned ones. Okay, but basically what we're going to do is I'm taking this skewer, okay, and I'm putting it about 2/3 of the way up, just before where that rectangle ends. Okay, and I'm going to take some Scotch tape, and I'm just going to go ahead and tape that on there just so that doesn't move. Okay, and I'm going to tape that on there real good. Okay, and I'm going to get a piece of Scotch tape ready, just so that when I'm ready to use it, it's ready to go. And what we're doing is we're folding this in half, okay, just like that. And I'm going to take my Scotch tape and tape that closed, just like that. Okay, and now here's where, just to kind of give this thing a more polished look, I've got my Florist tape here, and I'm going to begin by kind of wrapping a little bit of it around the stick, because it technically has a kind of a hard time sticking to paper if that's where you start initially. So all I'm doing is wrapping the Florist tape up along that piece there, and we want to stretch that tape to release the sticky, and just bring it all the way up until kind of hid the stick. Okay, and then work your way back down. Just work your way back down the stick until you've got it nice and covered. And there you go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And that's how you make your little piece there, and it's gonna jam right into your foam. Okay, so that only took maybe a minute. There are quite a few of these, but it's a floral arrangement, so you wanna make sure that it's nice and dense with greens. So you're gonna repeat that process for all of these leaves. Okay, so you're gonna have a bunch of these when you're done. Actually, the process, we've got these little, I don't know what these are, forget what they're called, but you're gonna do the same process with these as well. Let me go ahead and show you one more time here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my skewer in there, not all the way to the top, but kind of. Okay, I'm gonna get that glued down with some Scotch tape. And then I'm just gonna fold this over like so. I'm gonna take another piece of Scotch tape to hold it shut. Okay, and then with my dowel, you can get crazy with this. And again, just remember, the more random, the cooler it's gonna look, the prettier it's gonna look. So bend one out that way, bend one out this way, maybe train it like that, and then maybe train the tip up. Just make it random, you see? Okay, and then take your florist tape, make sure you stretch it out to get that sticky going, and get a little bit around the stick just to make sure it holds. And then work your way up. About there. And then bring it back down. Make sure you're stretching this as you go so that it's nice and sticky. And there you go. Okay, so you've got that piece. And again, you're gonna end up with a bunch of these little pieces here with the leaves and these little grasses. Okay, so get all those ready. And now we can move on to our flower, which is actually really fun and not hard at all. Okay, so my advice with the flowers is to kind of create a assembly line, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our skewer, okay, and you want your texture side out, so I'm flipping it over so that I have the texture side facing me. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of tape, and I'm gonna tape this down, but I'm also gonna make sure that the tape goes around the other side as well. Okay, so I'm just getting a little bit of tape here too. Okay, and now what you're gonna do is, and after the first one, I decided that this little dot method is better than putting a huge line on there, because eventually as you're rolling this, it starts squeezing out more glue. Okay, so you're gonna take the edge of that and roll it in, and you're just gonna kind of roll this. How do you roll this? I'm not even sure, because really, I'll be honest with you guys, the only thing I've ever rolled in my life, and I don't do it anymore, was joints when I was younger. And I never rolled one like this, so I'm not even sure how to describe this. I'm just kind of rolling it nice and tight. It's got to be really tight. Okay, so do your best to get that rolled really tight. Okay, and then when you get to the edge there, or to the end, you may need to put a little bit of glue on that tab there. And then go ahead and close that up and hold it in place until you're sure that it's not going to come undone. Okay, so it should kind of look like that when you're done. And by the way, I just say no, I don't smoke pot anymore. It's not really fun. But if you're into that, that's cool too, because I know it's got some medicinal purposes and all that. So I'm not against it. It's just not for me anymore. Anyway, so that's what that looks like. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this other part of the stamen. Okay. And actually, I'm not going to ruffle this out just yet because I need this to be kind of flat. We're going to take this bottom part here. Okay. And actually, yeah, that's fine like that. I'm going to take and just put a little bit of glue on that piece there. And you want these guys here, where the actual little tentacle things, those stamen pieces, to start right where these ruffles are. Okay, so about there. Okay, and again, I'm going to go ahead and put glue all down this, and just going to roll that again. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Just rolling it on there. Just like that. Okay, so hold that in place until you know it's not going to go anywhere. And what we want to do at this point is just leave, I would make all 4 of these for the 4 flowers right now. Okay, so you're going to repeat that process 3 more times and put them to the side. Let them really get a good grip, a really good hold, and then we can go ahead and start putting the rest of the flower together. You don't really need to do anything with this piece. This piece, again, I just kind of did an assembly line, and to assemble this piece, there's one little tab here. So you're just going to put a little bit of glue on this tab. And this isn't really going to be that visible, but you do want to make it neat. And I found when I did this piece, it kind of helped to have one of my skewers just to kind of push inside there to give me the leverage that I need to close it up. Okay. So it kind of creates this like cone shape like that. Okay, and I'll show you where and how we're going to use that here in a little bit. But let me make sure that that's nice and dry. And again, I'm using my little skewer as leverage to push this down so it holds. Okay, so make 4 of these. Okay, and now let's take a look at the flower. I'm just going to do 1, but as I mentioned with the assembly line, you may want to just kind of, what I did was these 3 smaller ones, they're going to get bent up like this. Okay, so this is texture side up, they're going to get bent up. Okay, so you want to bend all these up. Okay, so what I did was I actually, with all 4 flowers, which would make 12 pieces, because they're the 3 smallest pieces of each flower, I just went ahead and I bent them all up. Okay, so you can repeat that for the other flowers. Remember, the 3 smallest parts of the flower, you're going to bend the petals up. Okay, and for the 2 larger ones, you're going to bend the petals down. Okay, so I just went through all 4 flowers and did the same thing for all of them. And I had a table that kind of looked like this with 4 different colors. Okay, it's actually very simple. Okay, so remember, 3 smallest ones, you're going to fold them up. The 2 larger ones, you're going to fold them down. And now you want to grab your dowel or whatever it is that you're using to do your training. Okay, and I'm taking and I'm training them down. Okay, let me see if I can show you that. Okay, so you see how that looks? So the petals are bent up, but they're trained down, and I'm just taking each little petal and curling it against my dowel. Okay, so I just want to show you a close-up on this. I'm just curling it I'm just grabbing the tip, pushing it up against the dowel, and just kind of curling it like that, just to get a nice curve, a nice curl on these petals, okay? So you want to do that with all these petals. I mean, if you have your own method, or whatever you want to do is fine, but if you want it to look like I did it, you're going to want to follow these steps, okay? So that's that flower, and that's how that's going to look. So again, I found that doing this curl method for the 3 smaller ones, once you kind of get in a groove, you kind of just get in a groove, and it's so much easier and faster to do this curling. So once you finish the yellow flower, you can do this curling method to the other 3 colors. And for me, it just went a lot faster, curling down like this. Okay, so I really got into a groove, and then the 4 flowers kind of went together super quick, and I was using my dowel to kind of help me pull each little petal towards me, and then I was just kind of curling them like that. Okay, so hopefully you see me do this enough times that it will make sense to you. Okay, so that's that one. Very simple. And again, last one, same thing, just kind of curling it against my dowel. The paper that we use is really pretty too. It's got little polka dots on it. So it really didn't even have to ink the flowers at all. They just came out looking wonderful. Okay, so I'm just really curling it, and then if you want, you can kind of pull back as you're releasing it. Okay. So this is where that meditative aspect of this project comes into play. You're just really getting into this zone where you're doing a very repetitive process, and after a few times you just kind of zone out and become one with the flower. Okay, so that's that. So now I'll show you why I decided that it was best to kind of do those 3 and then do these. Okay, so again, these are curled, or these are folded down, and then you flip it over, and then this method, they don't need to be as tightly curled because we want to kind of create like a dome sort of feel for this flower. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my finger behind it and kind of bending the petal forward as I run the little dowel up against it. And just be careful so you don't break off the petal. Okay, so there you go. That's how that should look. I'll show you one more time with this one. And once you really get it going, you can really breeze through this. And that's exactly why I decided that I wanted to kind of make it an assembly line. So after you finish these bottom ones for this flower, go to the next one and do the same process, because you see how quickly that went. Okay, so we're actually ready to assemble our flower now. Okay, so here are all of the pieces for our flower. Very simple. We did a great job up to this point. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to grab this piece with the little X cut out of it. Now I'm going to take my skewer and push those out of the way a little bit, just to make it easier for me to insert this. Okay, and what you can do is go ahead and just, actually what I did was I put glue on the yellow part here, just little dabs. You don't need to cake it too much. Okay, And you're gonna shove that through, grab it from the bottom, and pull it through, kind of twirl it if you need to. Use your thumb if you need to, whatever you gotta do to kind of get it in there. And we want it to be pretty much flush with where these little yellow guys begin, the yellow part of the stamen. Okay, and then from the bottom here, you can use your fingers to push that up against that glue that we just added there. Okay, and you can flatten this out. And don't worry too much about the position of the petals right now, because we've got a few more layers that we need to add on there. You can always ruffle these up later on. Okay, so that's our first piece. And then what you can do at this point is just put glue on the bottom of this flower. Okay, and we're going to take our next piece, so it's the next largest piece, and just slide that over. Okay, and wiggle it around a little bit to get some of that glue, and just push and hold that down. Put my fingers in here to kind of push down so my thumbs are hitting that. And again, as you can see, I kind of flattened it out, but that's fine because we got to get these pieces on before we can really ruffle this thing up and get it into position. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to put some glue right there. And we're going to get our next largest piece and slide it through. And just push down, make sure that gets a good grip. And again, don't worry too much about how the flower looks just yet, because we've still got 2 more pieces to put on as far as the main flower goes. Okay, so again, throw some glue on that area there and get the next largest piece. It's the second to the largest piece, and get that glued into place. Okay. Now I'm kind of going pretty quick here. You may want to wait a little bit more between sections, but it's probably not necessary. And slide that last piece in there. Just make sure that the inner circle is overlapped, and also it also helps that if you kind of stagger the petals so they're not completely lined up perfectly. You want them to kind of alternate back and forth. Okay. So that's how that looks. And now we're going to grab this piece, texture side's here, so we're going to put glue on the non-texture side. Okay, so we've got glue on the non-texture side. I'm going to go ahead and slide that through and push that down like so. Okay, and then finally we're going to take this piece and kind of open these up a little bit, just a tiny bit, and I'm just going to put a dab on each of these little petals, even though it's not really a petal, and you're going to slide that through and push down and hold that in place until it dries. Okay, so that really cleans it up. And then we can actually clean this up even more by doing our thing with our Florist Tape. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just start on the stick and kind of wrap it around. Now, these flowers on these smaller skewers, they're hidden pretty well, so I don't even know that you need to do this, and it's actually a little challenging because those petals are in the way, but it's definitely doable, and it kind of polishes it off even more. So it's up to you if you want. I think on I think on 2 of them I did it, but on a couple of them I didn't. And unless you look really closely, you can't really tell, but you can. Okay, so there's your flower. And then what you want to do then is take these little tentacle stamens and push them out and then curl them up. Okay, and then the inner stamen, just really kind of make that random. Just push it around. Okay, and the first 3 layers of petals, you want to bring those back up and in. Okay, because those are going up. And we already trained them to curve out, so you can kind of just take your fingers and squeeze them in. Okay, and bring these up and in as well. So the first 3 layers, you can kind of ruffle those up. The 3rd layer, you want it kind of somewhere in the middle. Okay, the bottommost layer, I want to bring that down, make it kind of random. Okay, and the 2nd layer from the bottom should just kind of sit there like that. Okay, so there you go. There's your zinnia. And it's beautiful. So that's really it. We've got all the different components of our little compote here, the zinnia compote, all done. And you can then go ahead and I didn't hot glue this down on purpose so you could see. And actually did mine in 2 sections so I can leave one in and take one out. But it's all about just making it as random as you possibly can. I mean, you can do it like I did, and to put one kind of in the center, one off to the side, another one off to the side, and then just take your picks with, you know, all of your little additional elements and just pop them in there wherever you want, just to kind of fill in the gaps. Oh, and by the way, finally, there are some of these little tendrils, I think they're called. Just take them and you can train them, you can curl them, you can do whatever you want, and then just find a random place inside there to glue them. As you can see in mine, I just kind of put one off to the side here. I've got one sticking out here, just in random places. Okay, so you're gonna fill this thing. It's got your florist foam in there already. You have it hot glued, and you're just gonna jam your flowers in there and jam your little greens in there as well. Once you have it how you want it, you can then go ahead and put glue on the bottom of the structure. Okay, and set it on there. And just get that nice and centered and just leave it for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so until it's completely dry. And you've got yourself a masterpiece. This thing is stunning.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.